So, for the second week in a row, we've actually gotten another suit. And this one's actually at cost in relations to clans. We are looking at the Aggjin, a 350 space and ground raid that actually has space compatibility, but not water compatibility. And is also rarity-wise in 2-star hell, but we'll talk about the compatibility part in a second. Still, kind of a surprising suit. To my understanding, and I think it says it here, this is actually from Moon Gundam, which kind of explains the compatibility in that regard. But let's get into some of the weapons and stuff that this thing is rocking. So, very typical to other things in its range. Very Aggjin-ish kind of kit in some respects. Also, just a lot of internal weapons. So it's got a particle cannon. This does stun. It's got a singular claw. No 2 melee or anything crazy here. In fact, this has a lot of ranged, like stun locking and just kind of output to do in general. It's got a diffusion beam cannon. You can fire that while moving, but you cannot fire it while boosting. And also, for whatever reason, and I don't understand why, because that whole body doesn't seem like it's that flexible. But depending on how you're wiggling around while you shoot it, it does angle the shots kind of weird. So, you know, be mindful. Especially since it's in the center of your body and you're a pretty short suit too, so you might have some clearance issues depending. But much like the Ramzagok, it also has 2 discharges for its armed mega particle cannon. You can fire these at the same time. The problem being, of course, that you have to commit stance for this one. This is the only weapon outside of if you're doing melee that is commit stance, however. And if you do lay out the whole thing, you do get a stun. Also, the heat rate, not that bad, although in general, as you can see, and we'll talk about the general stats in a second. It doesn't do a whole lot in terms of just general output unless you lay out the entire thing. The fusion beam, in contrast, has a little bit more output as long as you hit all the beams, but it is a single shot. Much like on the Jiwagi, you only get 1 shot until it has to cool down and come back. And then it also has a missile launcher. Although, it says chest. Unless I'm just imagining it, I kind of figured that it was still coming out of the arm. We'll see that in a second when we go into the practice. So, but this is actually kind of an interesting suit for other things that we'll get into in a second. But for now, let's just focus on the stats themselves. So, like I said, 350. It's got 16k health, which actually let's take a look at some other things that are around this cost. So, Aggjin, which is level boosted, does have around that much. It is a little bit lower. The Aggjin, because it's the favorite, it's the baby of the group, also pretty similar. I'm throwing health on a lot of these, but let's see some baseline stuff. So yeah, that's pretty close as well. That actually has 18, but it's also because you put a lot of health on it. And you notice the pattern with some of the things. So at first I thought this was a little bit higher than average in terms of just the general health pool at this cost. In some cases, like the Dawn Tropin's very thin, but it does go up depending on what else you're looking at. But it actually has a pretty good amount. Pretty happy with that, and you would hope so just for the sheer bulk. Like, it's a big bulbous motherfucker. But let's look at the rest of the stats. That ballistic stat is rough, only at 8. Beam resistance is at 13. Melee resistance is at 15. Range strength is at 10. Melee strength is at 25. Very typical. The more you have of something, the less they like to give you the output for it. Not to mention, this is a raid suit, so they still expect you to go in and, you know, slide the shit out of people. And this is something that I kind of want to know, and we'll talk about it again later. But it makes me wonder if it factors into that too. But moving on, we have movement speed at 130, top speed at 195, which is, I want to say, actually surprising. Like 185 for this. 215 for this, but this is Zuda F. Like, the Zuda series, if it's not hitting 200, I'm gonna be upset. But a lot of the other stuff around this cost is actually like 10 lower, if not even lower than that, depending on what we're looking at, outside of a couple exceptions. And then thruster gauge at 55, which is the rough part, does not have a lot of thrust right out of the box, and turning speed of 66, which actually isn't too bad. But let's go down these skills here. So Assault Booster, High Performance Balancer level 1, High Spec Ambag level 2, Melee Combo Controller level 2 so you can get 3 swingy dingies, Leg shock absorber level 2, anti-blast stabilizer, which thank goodness considering the way that this suit plays. Especially when you go for melee or other things. Special head buffer, which is nice considering that the head is pretty much the entire front of the suit. It's got a big old noggin. So you're talking about a decrease of 20%. So damage dealt to the unit's HP and the overload on the head's HP is decreased by 20%. Aquatic mobile shooting. So this is weird. Like we were saying, it only has compatibility for space. It does get speed down if you go in the water. But it does have aquatic mobile shooting, so enables firing during high-speed movement underwater for main weapons that can be fired while moving. Also, we have a new something here called the Resist Move Kai. So it does not have a roll, and you should probably also note that on top of that, it does not have maneuver armor. This thing can be hit out of stuff if it's trying to make an approach. Now, we get into this thing for the Resist Move Kai. Press the accelerate button twice, so it does it like a roll to consume 15 thruster. Taking damage during Resist Move Kai nullifies reaction and deals damage to the target in contact with you, although you will still take damage. So very similar to the Fazavi, where it does have a freeze roll, although you don't have iframes. You are immune to stuns of any nature, but you do not have iframes. You will still get hurt. But considering that you also don't have maneuver armor, if you find yourself in a tight situation, especially when you're only taking 15 thruster, you should probably be taking that extra thrust. Now, that being said, as we look at the part slottage here, you know, your 3, 13, long range of 8, because you have so little close range, you're gonna have to put other parts on in order to get extra boost. And you're kind of limited in what you can put. So for the most part, it's gonna be things like, let me see. It's gonna be stuff like space frame. Actually, I am curious because there's another potential something you can put on. Maybe. Is it force cooling or is it regular cooling? I think it's regular cooling. So boost thrusters by 3. Literally, the first one takes all three slots. And anything beyond that, it looks like you cannot do. Now, obviously, you can bump up your upgrade by getting an extra bit, but even level 2 for this, you need like 3 extra, and it only gets worse from there. So yeah, your best bet for extra boost is gonna end up being something like space frame, just 1 and 2, since it only takes 1 each. You do get a little bit of extra health. Not the craziest thing. Depending on what you want to do, you might not even try to worry about it. But if you do want some extra rolls, that's a decent amount of what you can do there. Also, people are talking about putting special head armor, increase the HP from 45 to 75 with the unit HP. Now this is distribution. Effect doesn't stack with different level of the same part, by the way. So if you do one, that's the only one that you can put. You can't put multiple. Reduce HP loss from head damage by 6%. So the head HP part, not really a big deal. But the reduction part on there, and I think that's something that they changed over time. I don't remember if that second aspect was always there. But reduce HP cost from head by 6%. That's not bad on top of the amount that's already on there. Just keep in mind that they do not stack. Whatever one you put on there is just the one that you're going to have to use. But those are 2 factors that you can keep in mind, especially because you're already running so low on ranged output, and putting more melee on this is not necessarily in the cards either, unless you just want to forsake any other kinds of parts to just get like a 5 extra bit of melee. And that being said, you do have a little bit of wiggle room to put some enhanced firing on there. I don't know if that's super worth it, but you do have a lot of range stud to throw out. But this is just mostly a very technical and kind of cheeky suit, and you'll see it when we get into the match that we show off here, at least a little bit. And there are some other videos and clips that you can check out on Twitter that are showing some interesting things that can be done with this suit. Before we do that though, let us go over the enhancement list. So cooling support system, -3 to thruster overheat. And this is something interesting too. Because thrust is so valuable to the suit, it has support system twice on here. The rest of it's legitimately just throwing like frame reinforcement, so extra health. Melee modifier, only 1. And in fact, the only level 3 thing that you get is actually just more health, so 500 extra health. Complex expansion does come at the 3rd level at 830, so if you're trying to get some extra wiggle room for parts, then that would be your goal, ultimately. So with all that in mind, this is it's an interesting suit. I want to say, wow, actually that's, I don't know if that's just a camera thing. It is shorter technically, but it's bulkier. It takes up space in different ways. But it's a tiny dude. It might be one of the smaller suits in this game outside of maybe the Agg. But let's try to check this out over in the training room, and we'll talk about some other aspects of this before we go into our demo match. Okay. So, let me make sure that I actually have the cost set right. I don't know if I do or not. Okay, yeah, this is about the range. So just to show you so that I don't seem crazy. Obviously, you saw the marker, but let me move myself. I don't know if I can move myself, actually. Hold on. Where am I? Just so you can see, it does still have speed down. You cannot actually have that going on. I'm just going to put myself here for a little bit. But, like it said before, you can do mobile shooting. So while you're boosting, you can get that shot in. A little bit weird. I feel like they should have just gone all the way with letting this be an aquatic suit too. I know it's primarily just used in space, so we'll get into a space practice room in a second, just so that you can see a certain thing here. But, let's go over the regular weapons. So we got stun here. Output not that bad. In fact, we should probably just do it to this thing. So 1406 with that. Mega particle, pretty nice. You can fire that on the move. If you get the entire burst with this, and that's what I'm saying, it's coming out of the hand. It's not coming out of the body. I don't know why this calls it the body. It will stun, and then you pretty much need the entire burst for the commit stance. Remember that does make you commit. And here we have the roll. One thing to keep in mind then. Oh, it's not doing it now. What's going on with you? Are you seeing that? That's weird. Is it the shield? That was a little bit strange. But yeah, depending on how you approach and how long you can actually hold the roll on the character, and it's a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier when you have multiple people kind of bunched up in one spot. But you can actually get 2 hits per roll. At first I thought it was 3, but I think I heard another impact from someone that was just delayed, like here. But as you can see, you can get 2. Now, most of the time, especially when you're just glancing past them like that, and you can actually get it on the back roll as well. It doesn't matter which direction you do, as long as you're holding that contact on them, it will do some contact damage. And because of how many rolls you can get kills while just rolling people to death, especially if you're in a clusterfuck. Keep in mind that, as you can see when we're doing that contact, there's no stun buildup. And it actually doesn't stun them in the first place. So, you can actually do this while among other people. If you think that you're in a situation where you're not really going to be able to safely swing, and keep in mind, this does have kind of Aggjin-ish swings with the way it does things. It juts forward like that. But the arms don't reach as much. The arms on this are very stumpy. You got to be careful with how you approach. And there are certain situations where you're probably safer just doing the roll, at least to make sure that you're closing the gap before coming out with this. Something else to keep in mind, by the way. We're gonna do it this way, just so that. But something that I saw in a couple of videos very early on when this came out earlier today, because the rolls kind of have a longer animation, people are pretty much just holding their stuff like thumb on one and the index on their tackle, so they can just come out of that and immediately get a counter, because due to the fact that you can take damage, people are going to get cheeky and try to dissuade you from doing that by damaging you. And especially at this cost, you have things like Gashas and Zogoks running around that are like, oh, well, I have a similar priority, I have a lot of damage, I can probably kill you before you come out of that roll. And if they don't kill you, and if you got your tackle ready, you're just going to put them on the floor and do more damage. So this is a very goofy suit. It's very meme-ish, but it can also be a pretty technical suit. Also something that I just noticed. Look at this little sensor in the back. You know what that kind of reminds me of? It's a little bit Mega Man-ish, actually. There's probably some other reference you can do. I kind of wish that you could change the color of that. You know how cool that would be? But man, technically, yeah, this is shorter than some of these other suits. Even though I think it dates past most of them. I don't think there was any version of this, even a test version during like the Wonder War. But like, this is crazy. This is a silly ass suit. One other thing that we should try to establish then, and it's gonna take a minute for me to get there, so I'm probably gonna cut part of this up. But let's see what this thing can do to the enemy base, right? And actually, while we're making our way over here, let's establish something. So it doesn't really... It does have a decent top speed, but because of the consumption, you might actually be better off just doing the roll and letting the roll run out as much as possible, because you can get a lot of coverage. I've seen people roll for their lives and actually make it just because of the extra movement. But we're here at base. Let's try to lay into this thing for a little bit, like boop. One other thing to keep in mind in case you want to try to be silly, I don't think this actually does damage. There's no pings, there's no contact, so you can't roll at the base to kill it, which I think is a bit of a shame. I think that should totally be a thing, even if it doesn't do a lot, just so that you can do extra. Fuck it, right? So you can do little chunks here and there, but there's no real big thing on this that does a lot of damage because of how low its actual ranged output is. Like I said, you can doctor that a little bit, but compared to other things that you should probably be putting on this, or that you can put on this, I wouldn't really say it's a top priority. I wouldn't really worry about it so much. You're probably just going to be mixing it up with other suits that are trying to stop the rest of your team from doing damage to the base anyway. I would say that's going to be more so your job, just with the way that this runs. So with all that being said, let's take this to the final frontier real quick so that you can get an idea of how this moves around in space. Okie dokie. Now we are in space proper, and because it actually has that extra ambac and whatnot going on, because it is a space suit, it actually has a decent amount of movement. Again, having some extra thrust thrown on this thing, probably going to be to your advantage. Definitely something that you should consider. Also, since it does have that commit stance on the double beams, keep that in mind. But also, you might be able to use that to your advantage to get some extra movement once you actually do commit. So like, try to do it in a direction. Make sure that you're able to track properly if you do so. And the skill that it has for the movement Kai does still apply here, and it does a little spin like a Psycho Crusher when it does it in the forward. I want to say it just does like a regular like side twirl or whatever, because even the way that it goes forward, a lot of suits tend to just jump themselves and do a spin just to denote, and then the backflip, it does like a whole back flippy instead of the shuffle backwards. Hey. So not bad. That's also something, what we just did there too is something you can do as well. Keep in mind that you can get past people while doing a little bit of damage, and if it puts them in kill range, you can just fire a quick shot, maybe have this ready or something like that. Do what you gotta do. But yeah, definitely not bad. the interesting thing is going to be that the next clan match, which is on a Monday, unfortunately, so I can't really do it myself, is gonna be 350 in space. Which means there's a very good chance that if people practice this enough, especially with some of the silly meme stuff you can do with that tackle damage, or not tackle damage, but roll damage, that we might be seeing this thing running around during those. This isn't the last suit that we've really gotten at this cost. We did have the gym raid a little while back, among some other stuff. I want to say a lot of the token suits are either around this range or can become level boosted to this cost later on. But it's nice to just have a native banner suit be at this cost again. Hoping that we get some other stuff. The other thing that I was hoping to get was the Thunderbolt Aggjin. But you know what? Considering the way that they ran this thing and the fact that it's pretty much in the spirit of that, it's literally in the name to a certain extent. I think this is an acceptable substitute. If not, in some ways, kind of better, just because it's just another really goofy Moon suit. But that being said, let us take this opportunity to check out the match that we did. When we actually were going to do matches, it seemed like the initial rotation for this suit was going to have space in rated. It was going to be debris just like this, and we're going to be doing, like, I think, a basic match. But when we actually got back into the lobby, it turned into Arctic base instead. So we mostly just have ground combat for this, and we're going to show off one of those Arctic base fights right around here. That this has, it technically has a role, but it's something maneuver Kai, where it's a iframeless roll that actually does damage if you make contact with people, but it doesn't stun. There's no build-up if you do that. But it also only takes 15% of your boost, so you can actually do multiples of them. Well, the Aquafetti suits and Stutzer, yeah. Can't be stunned by those suits if you dodge through it. Yep. If anything, the fact that it can't stun is probably a good thing, depending on where you do it near your friends. Yeah, this is kind of a goober suit. I'm glad that I got it just because of how silly it is, but if you're actually saving up for anything else, don't get this, because it doesn't have like MA or anything either. It's a little bit exposed, even if it is kind of tiny. Itty bitty. Little goober buddy.
Allied unit destroyed.
Oh boy. Blech. Blech.
Heavy damage, pilot. You're all right. That mobile suit will
Oh boy, no, he's fucking got me with the hammer. Body. Mordai syndrome. A little bit. Clean it blue and red.
How will you redeploy? Beacon captured. An ally has destroyed an allied unit destroyed.
So actually, if you actually catch them like on the ground or if they don't move,
Try again.
the rolls, at least the forward roll, does enough for like three different hits. Oh, that's how I expected. But actually, yeah, unless I know for sure I'm gonna get a counter, I should probably actually
You've taken some light damage. Destroyed an enemy mobile suit.
just stick to the rolls because of how little it actually takes consumption-wise. Unless I just want to... Oh god. That was not a friend. That was not a friend.
An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit.
That's gonna be a really hard habit to break, actually.
Your unit's been destroyed.
Especially because I can still take damage in that, so like, if I roll forward, I'm just dying faster. You know, like the next from Sakura Wars? Oh my god. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple for that. That'd be really good. Katamari music.
Ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit.
Oh no.
Allied unit destroyed. out there and try again.
Real talk, that might happen when we describe or discuss the skill.
An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit. Allied
It's either I'm either gonna do some of the recording tonight, which I shouldn't, because I gotta get up for work. And at some point, that video is gonna come out. Oh jeez.
You've taken some light.
Dude.
Destroyed an enemy mobile suit.
Oh, he went down.
Clear the area.
Well, damn. Okay. Maybe don't have that much confidence in that. maybe don't do all that.
Supporting fire complete. The supporting fire hit the enemy. That mobile
Wait,
suit
what the hell? Oh, you again. No. Everyone backed off, I think. Sad. It's also on point. This is Kirby? Yeah. There's... Just because of the general blorbo shape of this, it really does lend itself well to like a lot of possibilities. I wouldn't be surprised, and it kind of sucks that you can't do decaling in this like you can in AC6. Because you could definitely make this like a Dragon Quest slime as well, if you really wanted to.
An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit. You've taken some light damage. An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit.
What do you mean? I got you with that first bit.
Incoming.
Don't lie to me, game. Such deceit. Oh, hold on. Yeah.
That mobile suit will last much longer.
Oh. That's not good. Aww.
We need to find a
The iframes, they don't exist. They're not real. That sounds so painless. You don't get damages. It's on a roll, yeah. It's all naked. It's a very naked roll. And I think, and that's similar to the one that they gave the Fazabi, except it's
Get out there and try.
kinda less text, but not really.
Enemy unit down. Well done.
Ugh.
Light damage.
How did I fucking slip by him? Oh, you got my butt.
Bases are more valuable for this mission.
Can't see nothing.
An ally has destroyed an enemy mobile suit.
Oh, can I? Yes, the roll kill. Uh-oh. Hey now. Let's not get too hasty here, okay? That's not what I wanted to do, though. Wait, hold on.
That mobile suit will last much longer. 1 minute left. Bring that victory home.
Oh wow, that rolling damage actually, because he landed on me, he got hurt. He's like, man, I don't like whatever the hell that was about.
Enemy unit down. Well done.
I'm really lucky that he lost his leggies. Ooh. I should have rolled.
An ally has destroyed an enemy.
Like, you can cover that distance faster than you can slap out your neutral. Unless you really want to try to time your downswing, but because his arms are so, stumpy.
The mission is over.
They don't really flex or, like, stretch out like the ant guys does.
Well done, everyone.
Look at this little goober. He's like, don't run into this bitch. Don't do it. Meanwhile, our support went ham. Just got to lay out people. It's just like a big dumb bubble.
Here are your rewards for this battle.
Peter Collins' voice, Agglin's rollout. Oh my god. Aggjin's rollout. Let's see. What? Tabby put on a bunch too. What are you doing? So definitely interesting. Alright. So that was the Aggjin in action. We also did get... if I'm remembering which one it was, we did get a roll kill. It's actually not super uncommon to do with this suit, just because of that skill. You get them low enough or someone else finishes them, you can just finish them with a roll. It doesn't have any sort of limitation, and that's amazing. I really like that they threw out this suit. It's not the most exciting thing, especially if you're really for more like titular suits and stuff, but it's very memeable. It seems like it can actually be very, what's the word? Quite the adversary. Formidable, I guess, formidable is probably the better word here. But I'm looking forward to seeing this thing around. I really hope that as the weeks go on, we do not see people's honeymoon period with this suit come and go. Especially because 350 is one of the more common super low costs that we get. We do not get a lot of 300, let alone 250, which is kind of a shame for the current clan match suit. But this is a neat suit. Am I gonna regret it probably next week when they try to blow a bunch of red tokens on like some random 4-star suit before Halloween? Probably. But it is what it is. And it's kind of the nice thing about this game, despite a lot of the gripes that we've been having, especially with a lot of the technical difficulties with PC, is that this is probably the most representation that most of these suits are going to get. In particular, I don't even know if the Aggjin is in an SD Gundam game, let alone a Super Robot Wars game, even though they do have Gundam representation. So this might be one of the first video game based renders of this suit ever. That's pretty historical for a very storied series that just has countless variants and crazy, ridiculous side story suits. This game, if you ever wanted a particular representation, you're probably going to find it one way or another in here, as long as you're all about that universal Sentry life. Obviously, alternate universes and stuff, no. But that's okay. In fact, if you really want to speak on it for a second, depending on what they consider to be esports, when they were talking about the metaverse thing earlier this week, I think, they were talking about the fact that they had other Gundam PvP or like potential esports ready games in the works, which kind of gives me hope for an Operation Next. I don't know if they really consider the Battle Operation series to be esports ready, especially after the PC debacle, but like they've tried tournaments in the past. I could see it being a thing to a certain extent, at least with the console version, if nothing else. But even if not, this is a kind of a once in a lifetime kind of game to be able to mess around with in this, especially as we've seen other Gundam games come and go over the last couple of years. So that's me done rambling. Sorry about that extra little bit, but you know, it's been a little bit going on, especially with Tokyo Game Show coming up too. I do hope that we get maybe some extra news for this as well. We'll see. But that is the Aggjin in a nutshell. Hopefully if you guys have spun for it, you enjoy it. There's a lot of goofy stuff that you can do with this suit. Be sure to, you know, get your laughs in while you can. Hopefully this doesn't get fucked with too much. I don't think it's going to get adjusted or anything like that. I don't think it's broken to the point where it's going to get picked on. But we'll see. And until next time, this is Goose on the 13th. I'll talk to you all in the next one.